Oh, baby, that was another sweaty one in Mets land. I'm trying to contain myself, folks, because I'm about to get hot-headed. I'm about to get sweaty. I'm about to break down another Metropolitan victory. How you doing, Mets fans? It's your boy, Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest Metropolitan postgame segment, and I want to see those W's spam in the live chat right now in the comments to my replay viewers. Same applies. Drop them down below. Carlos Mendoza did everything in his power to try to lose this ball game for the Mets with his bullpen decisions. At least that's what it felt like for a short period of time. But Francisco Lindor and the 2-out rally secure the Mets a huge Game 3 victory in a 4-game set here against the Pittsburgh Pirates. How you doing, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and we're going to break down everything that transpired inning by inning in this victorious matchup for the Mets, taking down the Pittsburgh Pirates here by a final score of 3-2. And today's show, we're not only going to highlight, of course, everything that was most noted in this game, we're also going to break down a new trade that happened for the Mets pregame today and acquiring a veteran left-hand reliever from the LA Dodgers organization that might just be, yes, a Jake Diekman replacement. We're going to get into what it means with that pickup and more here shortly into the show, everybody. But first and foremost, everyone watching live on our replay, spam those W's. We got a lot to talk about. We got to talk about Francisco Clutch-Door and his heroics once again. WardyNYM leading the way on the RBI front, looking like he's going to have 100 RBIs plus on the season. Sean Manaea making a great case for why the Mets may want to consider keeping him by the trade deadline, should they still be pushing for a playoff spot. All that and more is what we're going to be taking a look at here in just a second, everybody. We, of course, are going to be taking a look at the numbers, in particular on the pitching end. Sean Manaea, Reed Garrett. Why was Reed Garrett pitching back-to-back today? How did he look? Danil Nunez, was he pulled too soon? Edwin Diaz, a redemption from the 8th to the 9th inning that we saw there. And, of course, what we are going to get into on the hitting end. Francisco Lindor playing again. Mark Vientos, of course, not too much there. Harrison Bader with a clutching. A man that, again, is still banged up but making a difference, just like WardyNYM. One coming in later on in the ball game and having an impact with the bat when coming back from injury. That is Harrison Bader. We're going to get into everything on the offensive end. As always, folks, shout out to my amazing sponsors, as always, at BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out today by clicking the link down below. As always, folks, thank you all so much in advance for doing so in the description. Same applies with our great friends in the best MLB fantasy game out there at SoRare MLB. I see some donations I'm going to get to here, then we're going to let it rip with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Scott with the $5 donation. Scott says, Lindor balls out. Mendoza making, in my opinion, another terrible move, putting Diaz there in the 8th. Terrible. Yep, I'm going to talk about that, and that was 100% one of those decisions that, even though it didn't look great initially, I did honestly, truthfully have a level of comfort knowing it was Edwin Diaz coming in. But yes, based on the results, this is absolutely one of those things where it's a hindsight 2020. But we're going to get into Carlos Mendoza and why I was far from happy with his overall bullpen and just pitching configuration decisions that we saw yet again today. Something that he's fluctuated quite a bit with throughout this road trip. And while he's not at fault for everything with a depleted bullpen, he is certainly at fault for certain specific matchups. And we're going to get into that. Scott, thank you so much for that donation. Zach Flakerton with the $5 haul. Zach says, what if I told you there was an owner in baseball who paid a reliever $100 million based on one performance? What would you think of that owner? Here's the thing, Zach. If you think that the Edwin Diaz contract is based off of one season, you're not paying attention. You have to, of course, start in 2018, where Edwin Diaz had his first true breakout year in Major League Baseball with a whopping 60-plus save season with the Seattle Mariners. Edwin Diaz has been actually one of the best relievers in Major League Baseball on a consistency standpoint with his overall arsenal and, of course, his production that we have seen over the past 7 to 8 years now. Of course, relievers fluctuating their production. And yes, I can understand the potential turnoff on a $100 million contract for a guy that is not pitching to that caliber right now, but context is important. Edwin Diaz was supposed to pitch all of last season with the Mets. He, of course, being down for the year, impacted the Mets negatively right when the season began there to that bullpen, and that was part of their demise to begin the 2023 year for the Mets. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that was a stupid move by Steve Cohen. Again, hindsight's 2020, and I still have a lot of confidence and excitement in Edwin Diaz and the prospect of him being the save artist for the Mets for not only the remainder of this season, but in the years to come. Thank you so much for that donation, though. I appreciate that, everybody. But all right, guys, let's get in this one. Let's break it down. Let's let it rip with the official, as always, WardyNYM post-game jingle, baby. Let's hear it. No matter how much you love or hate it, let's let it rip. As always, everybody, shout out to my guys at Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. As always, folks, how you doing, everybody? Keto, great member. Tim Welch, great member. Let's go up the list here. Everybody, again, I want to see those initial reactions. Shrackin, great member, 36 months, said, Pete Alonso reminding me of Ike Davis. Oh, no, that's not certainly a good thing, I'd imagine. Appreciate the love and, of course, the support, as always, Shrackin. Dave, great member. How you doing? Thank you, guys. Carlos, great member in the chat here. Tim, great member and moderator. How are you, my man? Long time no see. Nadine, great member as well. James, great member. Steven, great member. Everybody first chiming in live on a replay. Michael Stroh, everybody, let me know again your initial reactions in the comments down below to the Metropolitan late 9th inning rally victory, where again it was a snooze fest. You could have slept for the first 7+ innings of the ball game, and you wouldn't have missed a whole lot. We have actually a lot to get into in this game for a game that ended just a 3-2 final score. There are a lot of key things to make note of there on the Mets' lack of course, taking advantage of their opportunities with runners in scoring position. They were in scoring position multiple times today before they finally scored there, and you have to look at the clutch gene again with this Metropolitan team. Headlined by Brandon Nimmo, headlined by Francisco Lindor, headlined by Harrison Bader. These guys continued to be nothing short of absolutely fantastic with their 2-out hitting ability. Harrison Bader, again, who has around a .330 average, batting in the 8th inning or later this season. Another huge hit that we saw in said matchup to, again, help give the Mets the ultimate lead in this ball game, everybody. We have a lot to get into. I'm so excited to break down this victory and, again, get into the ups and downs because this was far from a sexy win. We all know this, right? The Mets now, of course, are back to 500 on this season. They're probably 2 games out of a wild card spot right now because they were 2.5 out entering today's matchup. And this Mets team not only needed this victory, but sets themselves up nicely for tomorrow, where you got Christian Scott versus Mitch Keller. Another game where the Mets may, of course, falter on the offensive end quite a bit. So no better time than now to have guys like Pete Alonso, JD Martinez get out of their current ruts they find themselves in, everybody. But let's get into this, folks. Before I do anything, again, want to thank you all so much, everybody, being in here. We're almost at 50 likes already to my 300 concurrent viewers on YouTube and my over 400 concurrent here on Twitter. Make sure to hit that like, that follow button, my retweet button as well. But no, as always, to my Twitter followers, we will only be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube in the chat. So if you guys want to interact, make sure you're doing it that way. And thank you again so much for doing that, folks. But everybody, I actually want to start off today's show by discussing someone that is not relevant to today's game, because I think it's important that we kick off today's show by getting into the latest news that's happened with the Mets, because as you guys can see, outside of this being a Game 3 victory in 4 games here against, of course, the Pirates in Pittsburgh and PNC Park, the Mets did make a trade earlier today, and I definitely want to talk a bit about this trade here, because this is as David Stearns of a move as David Stearns can be here. Literally, this is exactly what you were kind of expecting, and as we have all been dying and hoping that the Mets would look to add arms to this bullpen, I told you all literally yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that, and the day before that, we were going to get into it on the headline for the Diekman replacement here. Again, not a guarantee that he will be the Diekman replacement, but certainly at minimum a short-term option for the Mets to hold themselves own in this bullpen leading up to the MLB trade deadline. And today, the Mets acquired a veteran 31-year-old left-hand reliever Matt Gage from the LA Dodgers organization, and they optioned him to AAA for now before the inevitable call-up that I'm sure will happen in the coming days. For those that don't know Matt Gage, again, a very, very interesting pickup here by the Mets. I do want to reference also a lot of my man Isaac Rothman. That may you guys know. Isaac does a fantastic job on relaying the info for Mets starters and relievers after each game. They kind of provide more than beyond the eye test, and a lot of those numbers come from Baseball Savant among others. But Isaac, who loves breaking down pitching and doing pitching threads and all that kind of great pitching analysis, has this to say on, yes, Mr. Gage. You know, he is a very funky southpaw with short arm action. A 119 stuff plus on his slider. So just for some context, across all pitchers of Major League Baseball, relievers with a slider, he's right around 19% better than the average pitcher in baseball with said pitch. With that pitch in particular, he is proficient on. 111 there that we see on the four seam, which touches 96 on the gun, according to Pitch Profiler. A 1.83 ERA and 19.2 career innings across with the Toronto Blue Jays a couple years ago, and last season that we saw with the Houston Astros just pitching to a sub-3 ERA in around 5 innings. And with the Mets in desperate need for southpaw help in this bullpen, they get that here, immediate reinforcements, and Sam Gage. Gage had a 4.31 ERA that we saw in the minor leagues for the Dodgers this year. What we also saw, apparently from rival execs, according to my good friend and, of course, great Mets beat reporter, that being Pat Ragazzo on the beat there, of course, for Fan Nation, which is in hand there with Sports Illustrated. He had to say this: rival executives really do like Sam Gage, and this was a guy that the Dodgers did not want to part with by any stretch. However, they were in a logjam with having an abundance of riches there for their bullpen options. And with Gage, again, beat a very crafty, funky southpaw that touches 96, 97 on the gun and is working some beautiful breaking pitches. He's a guy that was just on the outside looking in for the Dodgers in their bullpen configuration this season. So now the Mets bring him in, and this is 1,000% the latest David Stearns type pickup. Eerily similar to, again, the Mets considering their in-house options like Danilo Nunez, who continues to be utterly dominant as a true setup man for Edwin Diaz. You just got to actually allow him to set up and finish the inning. Cough, cough, Carlos Mendoza. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Also, in the case of course, some pickups that we saw David Stearns do this past offseason for this pen, there's definitely a lot of excitement to be had here with Gage because the bar is fairly low. The Mets need as many relievers as possible for their pen. Their depth among southpaws is currently as follows, and this is all in hand, unfortunately, with Brooks Raley being out for the year with injury. It has been a trickle-down effect, similar to Edwin Diaz last year being down with injury, and just how much it impacted this Mets bullpen. Not to the same degree as Diaz, but still an impactful one, because since Brooks Raley has been, of course, out for the year, Jake Diekman has been god-awful as the Mets' main southpaw option in this bullpen, should have been DFA'd weeks ago. Then you bring in Danny Young, who was first brilliant, great with the swing and miss stuff, but similar to Reed Garrett, but of course just not as effective as Reed Garrett, was really getting caught there, especially if he wasn't locating his sweeper, and he wasn't getting nearly as much swing and miss, after a certain amount of outings that Young was finding himself having. Like Reed Garrett, who struggled a lot with his splitter that we saw again today, pitching over 20 innings, after pitching roughly 30 innings yesterday, which I plan to stay on as we're going to break down this game here shortly, folks. The Mets have been looking for not only in-house options, but external options that, of course, are semi-sustainable to having the success that they've been having. In the case of Garrett and Nunez, they have been leading the front in that regard, but then you have other guys that, of course, have been up and down, headlined by a guy like Danny Young. So Young, of course, is a southpaw option the Mets have, but they're not overly comfortable with right now to throw out every single time out there. Joey Lucchesi has been looking great as a starter. Will the Mets consider stretching him as a reliever? I would think it makes sense. He has MLB experience as a reliever during his time with the Padres. We'll see if that is at all going to happen. Josh Walker, who pitched a scoreless plus inning a day or so ago that we saw there for AAA Syracuse. He's been great in Syracuse this year. With the Mets, I know he's been up and down, but the bar is very low here with Jake Diekman. Now you enter Gage, who honestly looks like he has some of the best swing and miss stuff opportunity out of all these current lefty options. And then you throw in another guy that can be utilized out of the pen should the Mets say, hey, well, you're better off as a multi-inning reliever and not a starter that's more of a five and dive, and our David Pearson, right? So the Mets do have in-house lefty options, but not a lot that they're personally comfortable with their current bullpen configuration. So by bringing in Sam Gage, he now enters this mix of lefty options for them. Again, a guy that you, of course, are acquiring where there is, low risk and just high upside and high reward. That is what you're getting in Sam Gage. Do not be surprised if he is called up by the Mets again, that we see in the coming Matt Gage, rather, not Sam Gage. Matt will be called up by the Mets within this next week. I feel uber confident in saying that, especially with how much the Mets are going to need continued help with these bullpen arms. Enter Gage. Don't be surprised if and when it likely happens. Let's see here, though. Strachan, thank you so much for the $5 donation. I appreciate that. Who do you want to draft with our pick? Please no catcher or shortstop. I would love, obviously, Honeywell. I think a lot of people would. Truthfully, when it comes to the draft this year, though, I'm not as, hung up on one specific guy or the next. Honeywell will be amazing. I just don't foresee it happening, per se, with the Mets drafting all the way at 19. But we will talk about more of the draft here as well. Don't be surprised if I bring on someone more versed in the draft aspect of things for the Mets and MLB draft as a whole, as we inch so close to the draft and then eventually the MLB All-Star break. Jack Graham, great member. How are you? Only a few minutes, well, I'm happy to have you in here, my friend. Thank you all so much. Which batters, fielders will the Mets get before the deadline? We will talk about that, of course, plenty this week. Be on the lookout for that, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really, really looking forward to getting into trade options for the Mets this week, both on the pitching end and also to a degree on the offensive end. And I just realized that my camera just decided to disconnect everybody. So bear with me 1 second. You guys all should still be able to hear me just fine. So again, I apologize if I just froze for a minute, but just bear with me 1 second, folks. And I'm going to try to get this all fixed up. Yep. Give me 1 sec. Oh, wait. Yeah, you guys can't see me, right? You guys probably just see me frozen at the moment. Let's see if I can fix this real quick, and we will continue on breaking down this ball game and getting into everything else that transpired in between it. You know what, guys? For whatever reason, my other webcam was like, we're just not going to work anymore, but I really don't think that matters. As long as you guys are fine with it, I'm just going to roll with my laptop webcam. Again, might not be the prettiest one, but it's definitely better than me ending the stream for a stupid reason. Oh, exposure. Let's calm down on the tits there for a second, shall we? My goodness, my God, my gracious. Okay, and let's see. And I can't dabble with anything of it. Of course I can't. Okay. All right, guys, let's roll. We're handsome and all, but we don't have to look at you. That's true, David. That is fair, and I appreciate the honesty there. But all right, guys, let's break down this ball game inning by inning, shall we? Any word on Matt Allen? No. Matt Allen will more than likely never pitch a game in the major leagues or even get close to that point. And guys, we're almost at 100 likes in the live show. Thank you so much to my 400 concurrent viewers. Really appreciate every single one of you guys, and to my live viewers on Twitter. You guys are the best. But as we now break down this ball game inning by inning, let's do exactly that, folks. And then we're going to hear some awesome words from our great sponsors at BetUS and, of course, so are MLB. And then we're going to get into more on the pitching end, more into it on the offensive end. But before I do anything else, my final question for each and every one of you here in the live show and our replay is, what is your biggest takeaway for the Mets? Of course, acquiring Mr. Matt Gage as a veteran southpaw option for this bullpen at some point this season, likely in the coming days over this next week, for essentially cash considerations in doing so. The Mets didn't do anything wrong. And then as the corresponding move, they transferred Drew Smith, who's out for the season and will likely never pitch for the Mets again as he's in a contract year on the 60-day IL. Continue to let me know your thoughts there on Gage. Would greatly love to hear it. And again, thank you guys so much for that. But all right, folks, let's get into this ball game. Let's break it down as we always do. And again, this was a massive win for the Metsies. And Sean Manaea, who entered this matchup against that we saw there for the Pirates, who was just absolutely disgusting. Ortiz, my goodness, holy guacamole. Here I thought the Mets might have a slightly easier matchup without Jared Jones in this series. Little did I know that Ortiz would just be pumping gas 99 right through and past these Mets hitters. But just like the game that we saw Jared Jones go 5 scoreless dominant innings against the Mets 2+ months ago at Citi Field, the same outcome happened again. The Mets were, of course, shelled. They were shut down by the opposing starter of the Pirates, and Aroldis Chapman gives everything up and then some to the Metsies in this ultimate victory. But as we see here, Sean Manaea again this season, when utilizing a catcher not named Francisco Alvarez, an ERA over 5. When he's utilizing now, yes, Francisco Alvarez as his standalone catcher, now after today's outing has an ERA with him of just 1.33. Yes, Alvy has been that impactful for Sean Manaea, among others. AZ, thank you for the donation. AZ says, Mets rally W, put it in the books, baby. Put it in the books indeed. Thank you so much for that donation. Great member as always. Cautious optimism is what my man Kish says in here in regards to the Mets at the moment. I don't know how much about him, but if he was as good as hyped, as good as the hype might suggest, he's been in the majors this year, right? He hasn't been in the majors this year in Gage. He was last year and the year prior, however. Only reason why he hasn't cracked the bigs this year is because the Dodgers bullpen has been way too deep, and they haven't wanted to bring him up for the potential chance of losing him organizationally until they really need him, if that makes sense. But as we break down this ball game now, folks, again, we got ourselves a 1-2-3 inning there for the Mets, nothing on the offensive end. And for Sean Manaea, he gives up a leadoff walk to Andrew McCutchen. Thankfully, Brian Reynolds grounds into a double play, and after a Connor Joe walk, that does it for the first. And the second, Pete Alonso, who has been frustrating a lot of Mets fans as of late with his continued lack of consistent play in his walk year. Alonso rips a single in his first at-bat today. Francisco Alvarez sadly grounds into a double play shortly after, and that does it for the inning. Mind you, DJ Stewart once again got the start today, today. And yes, my head was scratching like many of you for a guy that has been very useless from the Mets as of late. Nothing personal against Teddy Bear. Love you, Teddy Bear, Mr. DJ Stewart, but I don't love you getting the playing time you're getting right now for a guy that is not doing anything to warrant it with right around a 300 or so slugging. The OBP means nothing if you can't lift the ball and drive it for power, and you're looking more and more like our boy Vogie by the day in the worst ways possible, DJ. So we got to get your head out of the ass. 1 and 2, we probably just need you off the roster because you're just taking up space at the moment. Brian Hayes, of course, would reach there that we would see, unfortunately, on an error by Sean Manaea. Manaea just missed the tag at first base and even had a secondary chance to tag Hayes again after walking past first base because the tag wasn't on yet, but he dives back in time. Manaea unfortunately allows Hayes to get on there, and a wild pitch by Manaea shortly after allows Hayes to get to second base. Then we see there, thankfully, nothing else transpires right away. We see Hayes steal third base somehow, but we see a strikeout on Joey Bart ends the inning there. Huge work. We advance further here then. Mark Vientos then rips a single. Marky V with a single here that we see in the top of the third. Afterwards, that's all she wrote for a couple outs. McNeil strikes out swinging. Jose Iglesias with a line out. And Lindor rips another hit because Francisco Lindor loves to bat leadoff. And he continues to put a smile on my face how good he has been in that position this season. Lindor with the hit. Runners on the corners, 2 outs. Brandon Nimmo unfortunately strikes out thereafter. In the bottom of the third, Sean Manaea with a clean 1-2-3 inning of work, including a pair of strikeouts. Nothing from the Mets as they go down in order from JDM, Alonso, and Alvarez thereafter. As we then advance to the bottom of the fourth with 2 outs, we see Brian Hayes get on with a single. Then, thankfully, that's all she wrote because Edward Olivares grounds into a force out, and that'll do her for the inning. We head to the top of the fifth where the Mets, again, do nothing. 1-2-3 on the offensive end. And on the pitching end, we see Sean Manaea work another strong inning. He gives up a single to Joey Bart. He walks Michael A. Taylor, but that is all she wrote, thankfully. And Joey Bart, a huge out, thankfully, trying to leg a single into a double. He might as well have taken notes that we saw from a guy like Harrison Bader, because Joey Bart is a guy that overshot that thing terribly the way that Bader had a couple times earlier this season. But in the case here of Joey Bart, again, a huge throw that we saw by Jeff McNeil, who got the start in left field today instead of second base because Iglesias' great hands that we saw turning big double plays today at second base, especially with Lindor, was huge. But we did see McNeil with a perfect throw there to get the out at second base. Taylor walks. That's all she wrote. We get to the top of the sixth where Francisco Lindor rips his 26th double of the season. Afterwards, the Mets are trying to drive him in. They get the runner to third. Nimmo, of course, moves the runner over with a ground out, but JD Martinez unfortunately grounds out there to third base to end the inning. JD and Alonso continue to be in the ruts that they find themselves in. And the bottom of the sixth in Sean Manaea's final inning of the day, 3 up, 3 down, including a strikeout on Nick Gonzalez to end his day. Sean Manaea's final line, folks, again, is as follows, everybody. We are looking at 6 strong innings of 2 hit, 3 walk, 6 strikeout ball. Let me know how you guys feel about Sean Manaea after a masterful outing going 6 strong and not even needing to work too much Houdini magic. Again, he allowed a total of 5 base runners over 6 innings. It could have been much worse for Sean today. While I obviously want the walk rate a little bit lower there, Sean giving the Mets 6 shutdown scoreless innings is massive, and I greatly appreciate that, and we're going to get into Sean a little bit more here, but I want to know to all my amazing Mets fans watching live on a replay, where would you grade Sean Manaea on a scale of 1 to 10 after today's outing? Let me hear it, and again, thank you all so much in advance for doing exactly that. As we hop back in this ball game, this 3-2 victory for the Amazons, we're going to get into what transpires here because as we then get, of course, to the top of the 7th inning, the Mets do kick off some offense. Francisco Alvarez rips himself a 1-out double as Alonso strikes out swinging against the reliever that we see coming in for Ortiz after pitching 6 beautiful innings for the Pirates. Alvarez rips his 11th double of the season, and of course, DJ Stewart and Mark Vientos go down in order from there to end things. We see Reed Garrett then come in to replace Sean Manaea in this matchup. Then we would see Brandon Nimmo shift to center field. Harrison Bader comes in for DJ Stewart. Bader, who did not start the day because he's had, some neck stiffness. They want their day by day with him. Of course, still ramping up from hitting the wall in DC a couple days ago. In the case of Bader, though, a guy coming in this game later, and he would be huge both offensively and defensively. McNeil would then switch that we would see to right field to finish this ball game as well. and Brian Hayes unfortunately rips himself a single off of that we see from Reed Garrett. Garrett, who pitched 27 innings yesterday and got out of a bases loaded, less than 2-out jam, all thanks to the umpire quite literally saving his ass and having literally the opposing manager of the Pirates get thrown out because of the frustration level. No less, Reed Garrett gives up a single to Brian Hayes. Then we see pincher hitter O'Neal Cruz comes in to swing, and he strikes out. And what was a grueling at bat between the two, again, O'Neal Cruz stayed in it, but he didn't look too locked in there. Cruz is now 0 for 8 in his career off the bench, so still something he's personally getting adjusted with, one being a pinch hitter every now and then. And thankfully, a huge double play turn by this Mets infield gets Reed Garrett screaming his head off a secondary time in as many days. Reed Garrett goes from pitching 27 pitches yesterday to around 23 today, both innings in which he does not allow a run to be scored. However, does escape the jam in doing so. And we see Tellez grounds into the double play, which would be huge. Turn from Iglesias to Lindor to Alonso, and that does it for the 7th. In the 8th, we see former Met now foe Colin Holderman in one of the most lopsided recent trades in Mets history for Mr. Billy Epler in that disaster class of a trade. Hindsight's 2020, and holy shit, is that a bad one. Jose Iglesias, no less, after a Jeff McNeil strikeout, rips a single, his second hit of the day. Jose, however, would be caught trying to steal second base, which stunned, but thankfully, the Mets, again, would tack on big time with 2 outs. First, Francisco Lindor works a walk and a beautiful at-bat one-on-one there, a mano there in this matchup against the Pirates, and that would be absolutely masterful against Holderman. And then Brandon Nimmo, of course, does Brandon Nimmo things. He drives him in. Nimmo with a 2-out opposite field RBI double makes it, of course, a not tied ball game, but gives the Mets a 1-0 lead, rather. Huge stuff here for Brandon Nimmo. His 17th double this season, continues to be one of the most clutch hitters for the Mets this season, and now has right around 53 RBIs. Yes, Brandon Nimmo is still on pace to hit around 25 home runs and over 100 RBIs this season for now a guy batting the 2-hole. And we absolutely are taking that every day of the weekend on Sundays, including today. JD Martinez with a walk, but unfortunately a grounded into force out by Pete Alonso ends it there. We then head to the next half inning, folks, as we see Danilo Nunez come in to replace Reed Garrett. He gives up an early single to Jack Sawinski. Then he gives up a single to Andrew McCutchen after striking out Michael A. Taylor. But a huge strikeout on the hottest hitter by far for the Pirates in this series, and Brian Reynolds gets Nunez hyped up, and it's like, okay, I get it. There's 2 on, 2 out. Danilo Nunez, you have confidence in him and his abilities this season. He has been absolutely nails with that fastball and that slider. But the Mets and Carlos Mendoza do a head-scratching thing, to my opinion. Similar to that, you can even argue with Sean Manaea, who exited today's game at 6 innings and 89 innings pitched. Sean Manaea could he have won 7 innings? I think there's a great chance he could have won 7 innings today. Thankfully, the Mets still win, so again, it is what it is. But still, between Reed Garrett having to be heavily worked again today, when maybe that could have been avoided by at least an out or two, should you stretch Manaea to go in the 60-plus inning 60-plus pitch range, which he has done multiple times this season. You take him out, and then Danilo Nunez gets a huge strikeout in a big at-bat against Brian Reynolds, and you pull him with 2 on, 2 out for Edwin Diaz, trying to get a 4-out save when Diaz just returned from suspension yesterday and just worked a beautiful, that we saw there, 4-batter clean save against the Pirates yesterday. Of course, hit the first batter he faced and then worked beautiful stuff. Actually, I think he faced 3 batters because I think he got the double play ball yesterday, right? But Edwin Diaz, of course, comes in today and he just doesn't have it. He doesn't look as comfortable. He doesn't have the stuff. He throws a 4-pitched walk to Joshua Palacio. So it's bases loaded, 2 outs here, and this is why you're head scratching. Nunez had the confidence going, and he was going to face Palacio. Why wouldn't you keep Danilo Nunez in that situation if you're Carlos Mendoza? Why wouldn't you want to try to lessen the taxing on your bullpen for a guy, Nunez, who absolutely is notorious for going, again, these 1 or 2 plus innings pitched strongly? It just didn't make sense. As much as I love Edwin Diaz and was initially excited to see him in there, I still understood why it was a head-scratching move. And unfortunately for Carlos Mendoza and the Mets, similar to, again, you can make the arguments with Mendoza pulling Ottavino a couple days ago, or Mendoza having Hauser pitch anything in the zone at all to Jesse Winker. These are just kind of, nitpicky things, if you will, that are further amplified in tight 1 or 0 run ball games. And it was that today here, as again, unfortunately, Nick Gonzalez rips a slider right down the pipe. Again, Edwin just could not locate this thing whatsoever. And now we see them in the case here of the Pirates. They make it now a huge early lead there. 2-1, and it's huge because you're late in this ball game, folks. We're in the bottom of the 8th already, and the Pirates get this late lead. That's normally not going to bode well for a Mets team that, again, just found themselves getting a run. I know it's a close ball game. I know they're only down by a run, but you're not feeling overly confident in their opportunity and their chances here, and that was a frustrating one for sure. For Edwin, again, cannot be hanging sliders the way that he certainly did there. That's just no bueno. That's never going to work, obviously. And for Carlos Mendoza here, just a head-scratching decision, in my opinion, for something that I don't think needed to be had in that moment. And correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know how you guys feel, if you agree or disagree. I think Mendoza is doing a strong job overall. However, I've not been happy with all of his bullpen decisions. And I would like to preface, I've been a guy that's given him a lot of benefit of the doubt on the bullpen front, especially in the case of things that were out of his control, like being down an arm with Diaz's suspension that had been going on for as long as it did. But let's get back in this one now, folks, as we continue to break down this ball game before we get into more numbers. We're just about at 100 likes to my 400 concurrent viewers. Thank you all so much, everybody. Continue to smash the like and subscribe button. Greatly appreciate it. Help us get 30K subs for our next short-term goal for the #1 post-game show and Mets platform here on YouTube, not directly affiliated with the Mets or SNY. Thank you all so much in advance, as always, for doing exactly that. But the Pirates take a 2-1 lead. Thankfully, Diaz gets the final out there, and thankfully, the Pittsburgh Pirates brought in the Mets' favorite pitcher to face, and that is none other than, yes, Aroldis Chapman. Chapman would walk Francisco Alvarez after Alvarez grinds out a huge at-bat against Chapman here, and you know, you're getting the senses early that Aroldis Chapman is going to bring the Mets right back in this ballgame, and he does exactly that because Ben Gamble, who comes in as a pinch runner there at first base that we see for Francisco Alvarez. Harrison Bader, in his first at-bat of the day, rips a single off of Chapman, which would be huge. Then we see their former teammates, now foes against each other, no less. Mark Vientos, we see there, strikes out looking, which was tough. Again, Vientos, it was a perfect pitch to right down the pipe, low in the zone, just didn't swing, didn't take the bat off the shoulders. That was a tough one for sure. Huge pinch hit. At least that's what it felt like it was going to happen for Luis Torrens, was coming in instead of Jeff McNeil here. And Torrens, who has been swinging the bat well, just could not handle Chapman's heat whatsoever. He was overmatched right from the jump in that at bat, and he strikes out as well as he's called out on K's. Thankfully, a wild pitch by Chapman allows Gamble to get to third base. So the Mets have runners on the corners with 2 outs, and Jose Iglesias has himself a masterful at bat. You thought Alvarez's was good, just enter Jose Iglesias, the Mets veteran infielder now, continues to do fantastic things. A huge at-bat here against Aroldis Chapman. He's staying up with the heat. He's hacking them off, and he would do wonderful things here by ensuing a walk. He even had a little snarl, a little pumped up after that walk, because that was a grind out of an at-bat there against the flamethrower in Aroldis Chapman, and that couldn't come at a better time for the Mets, and the Mets' hottest hitter, you could rightfully say, Francisco Lindor, rips himself a 2-run single that gives the Mets a lead, a 3-2 lead, an ultimate victory here. Lindor with his 3rd hit of the day, 2 RBIs on the day. He's 1,000% Wardy's player of the game. If it's not Sean Manaea for going 6 beautiful innings, it's 1,000% going to be Mr. Smile himself and Francisco Lindor. Let me know in the chat, in the comments down below, guys, if Francisco Lindor is your personal pick of the day here of course, our player of the game, or if you guys have someone different and why, let me know. Brandon Nimmo with a walk thereafter, but that's all she wrote, folks. Edwin Diaz comes in the 9th. He gets a strikeout on O'Neal Cruz. He grounds Rowdy Tellez out, and he grounds Jack Sawinski out for the 4-out save. Back-to-back saves for Edwin Diaz, returning from suspension, and back-to-back days with this Mets bullpen. Again, while it's been a little shaky, has still been pretty nails for the most part. They go on to win this one again by a final score of 3-2. Everybody, how we feeling after that Metropolitan victory here, folks? Again, they needed this one big time, and they looked for not only the series victory, but they also looked for a positive road trip with a victory with Christian Scott on the bump tomorrow. Steve, happy to have you in here. Thank goodness indeed, my man. Yes, we certainly did need a victory here. 40 pitches for Chapman. Yep, that cannot be understated. Absolutely. Mind you, the most pitches that Aroldis Chapman pitched this season, I believe, was 27. So all it took was another matchup here against the New York Metropolitans to get Aroldis Chapman shaking in his boots the way that he did. And the Mets win a massive one here again by a final score of 3-2. Would you rather have Counsell over Mendoza? I mean, I think that still goes a little bit without saying. Counsell is a brilliant mind. However, I will say that just because you might have a brilliant mind for a guy track record isn't going to amount to immediate success. I like Carlos Mendoza. I don't have gripes with Mendoza as Mets manager. There's a lot of things that I like about him as manager. However, just because I like you doesn't mean that I'm not going to critique you when I feel that you did things that were either head-scratching or maybe you weren't the best in the moment. And again, it's a hindsight 2020 thing. With a lot of these things, I understand that. But still, that's some things, that's some food for thought, if you will, in regards to Mendoza. Same way that I felt about Buck. You know, my relationship and my personal viewpoint on Buck fluctuate a lot throughout his Mets tenure. Same can be said with a lot of players on this Mets team too, because all I care about at the core is winning and having sustained success. If you help the Mets in that regard get there, I'm happy. If you don't, then I probably don't want you here, or I'm not happy with you at the very least. But the Mets get themselves huge outings from Sean Manaea and this bullpen, and on the offensive end, wasn't sexy. Still need, of course, guys like JD Martinez and Pete Alonso to get their heads out of their asses at the moment. Certainly would be huge to get those guys swinging big time. Mark Vientos, of course, Marky V1 locked in. He's as effective as one can be there at the hot corner. Lots of love there, everybody. And I got plenty more to say here, so let me just double check to make sure I didn't miss anything in my notes in particular. And on the updates, I also did want to share update-wise, folks, Kodai Senga will officially begin, again, another rehab assignment he will have this week. He will be pitching at AAA Syracuse, as we mentioned, and it will be Tuesday. So there we go. This Tuesday is when Kodai Senga will have his next outing, and he's going to throw 50 to 60 pitches at the AAA level. So just some things to bear in mind there for Kodai Senga, who's continuing to work himself back, of course, who's been out all year, the Mets ace, with multiple injuries, not just the capsule injury, but then the setback of inflammation, two different types of injuries kind of going on there. But thankfully, Senga's ramping up. The velo's 97-98. The ghost fork is ghost forking, and he's looking locked and loaded and ready to go, folks. And speaking of ready to go, let's get ready to get into here everything that needs to be said on the pitching end. But before I talk a little bit on the pitching end, folks, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor in the channel, one that many of you guys and gals know very well, and that, of course, is going to be our great friends that many of you guys know, the best sportsbook out there, of course, at BetUS. Because in case you guys don't know BetUS, they, of course, have you covered with all your sports betting needs. And we just gave away a Brandon Nimmo jersey to a lucky Mets fan, all just for signing up there to BetUS and simply sending me a screenshot of them placing a bet. That's all you had to do to sign up with our unique link down below. So let's hear a quick word from our great friends there at BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
As always, everybody, BetUS, who obviously covered all your sports betting needs. Check them out today to get that 125% deposit on not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits. And as many of you guys know, in either our pregame segments that we have done plenty this season, or of course just in our postgame segments, we go over our daily or nightly MLB picks, folks. And as we take a look at the slate of games that still have yet to be played today, we got a big matchup with the Red Sox and the Yankees here. That's been a fun series thus far. Then we have all of our Monday matchups, and that's where I want to have a further point of emphasis. The Mets are, of course, the money line favorite tomorrow at -101 to the Pirates at -109. If you're going to be a biased bettor, of course, bet responsibly. Do so here with the Mets money line, should you wish. But I see the Cardinals, Nationals, big matchup. Guardians, Tigers, that's a fun matchup as well. Skubal was nasty for the Tigers today. Oh, he was just so good. Angels and Rangers as well. Honestly, not loving these slates whatsoever. And you know what? Just for the sake of having some bias and really praying and hoping the Mets can beat up on Mitch Keller tomorrow, we are biasly going to throw a Mets bet in there on the money line. And when we look at the Red Sox and the Yankees, we will do this as a 2-pick parlay. So one game will be today, the second game will be tomorrow. And the game that'll be today, again, is the Red Sox and the Yanks. And who is matching up on the pitching end with these two teams? We have Cutter Crawford versus Luis Gil. Oh, yes. Sign me up. Red Sox spread every day of the week. Cutter Crawford's been pitching strong. Luis Gil has not been the same Luis Gil that he was a month ago, and I'm really interested to see who's going to bowl out. Ben Rice having 3 bombs yesterday, making my man Derek at NYY Recaps, the best Yankee YouTuber out there, for coverage similar to this for the Yankees, buzz his head live on YouTube yesterday because he tweeted, if Ben Rice hits a 3rd home run, I'm going to buzz my head alive, and he did exactly that. So shout out to you, Derek. Love staying committed and being a man of your word there, but I'm going to go with the Red Sox here. Red Sox have been playing playing good baseball. That was a wash of a game yesterday. I'm really excited to see how this one's going to go against Cutter Crawford. Him and, of course, Tanner Houck have been 1-2 studs in that rotation for the Red Sox so far this year. And that is a 2-pick parlay, which is 10. That'll win you 21, a total win of 38 if you place individual bets like I did on these 2 bets, that being $10 each. And, of course, make sure you guys bet responsibly with our great friends at BetUS, but only tail at your own risk. Of course, make sure you know what you're getting yourselves into. I'm not a betting expert. I'm just a diehard Mets fan, baseball fan. I love to throw my sports bets with our great friends at BetUS. But let's hop back in this one now, folks. Let's break down more on the ball game. Let's pivot right now to the pitching end. I want to know where you guys stand on the pitching end. Also, definitely want to know where you guys stand on the betting front. If you guys are sports bettors like myself with BetUS, our amazing sponsor, or whatever sportsbook you guys use, let me know what games have been hitting for you guys lately and why. Have you guys been more involved in the money line spread front and just picking games outright, or have you guys been more involved with, say, props? Say you guys have been loving a prop to, say, Francisco Lindor over on, say, 2 or more hits in a ball game. Like, wherever you guys stand on the betting front, I would love to hear that as well in the chat, guys. So feel free to do exactly that. Jesus Luzardo, who's out with injury with a 5 ERA this season, I would absolutely take, and I would buy not completely low on him because he still has value, obviously, but this is not a terrible time for sure in the case of trying to buy an arm such as his that's controllable and very talented still. It's just a matter of Peter Bendix's interest in trading in the division, 1, and 2, David Stearns' interest in going after an arm like Luzardo, who has been dealing with injuries, as we know, but has multiple years of control on the contract for a young, crafty southpaw that I think would be very good in this Mets bullpen, but a rotation rather. And speaking of Mets rotation, as we take a look at the Mets offense today, everybody, I really want to take a look at Sean Manaea in particular because he had a lot of things working today. So Sean Manaea, a little pitch breakdown of him. The sinker that he threw right around 46% of the time today, topped out 95, but sat 93. Sweeper, 20% of the arsenal, topped out 83, sat 76. Slider, 12% of the arsenal, topped out 86, sat 85. Changeup, 11% of the arsenal, topped out 86, sat 84. Four-seam fastball, just 9% of the arsenal, which I like today. Not using that four-seam much is definitely not a bad thing when it's flat the way it has been for Sean at times. Topped out 96, sat 94, and the cutter that he threw once at 86 there. Sean Manaea worked brilliantly today, and what I loved most is that he was able to generate a good amount of whiffs. We saw a 32% whip percentage that we saw on the sinker today, a 33% whip percentage on the sweeper. He induced, again, a solid amount of strikeouts in this matchup, and Sean just working those quick ground outs as well. Just great job by Sean Manaea all around today. And for a Mets team that has basically all arms available for teams to look to acquire by the trade deadline, even should they find themselves buying, even then, the Mets will absolutely consider parting ways with a guy like Manaea, and he's having himself another very serviceable outing for the Mets. So, really want to know, everybody, let me know where you stand on this in the comments down below for my replay viewers. Same applies. Do you want the Mets to either keep or trade Sean Manaea by the trade deadline? Regardless on, assuming they're similar in standing as they are right now, still within reach of the wild card, maybe they're in a wild card spot by then, maybe they're a little bit on the outside looking in, but still within, 4.5 games or so. Where do you stand on Sean Manaea and his future? I would love to hear it, everybody. Reed Garrett, again, that splitter was, of course, frustrating for him today. Daniel Nunez was looking great there with the slider, the four-seam, and did throw a sinker and a changeup once. So not something we've seen much from him this season, but he did have them in the back pocket that he threw a couple times each there. And Edwin Diaz, again, of course, when he is right, is very productive. Edwin didn't look great in the 8th, but bounced back beautifully that we saw there in the normal save situation in the 9th. And the velocity that we saw with Edwin, the slider was sitting right around 90 miles per hour, 90, 91, and the four-seam topped out 98 and a half, so rounding out to 99, and was sitting right around 97.2, which has been to a T on the dot his year average. Same thing as Daniel Nunez, funny enough. Nunez's fastball has been right around 97.2 this season as well. So that's what you got there from the Mets really on the pitching end. A lot of strong showings. And on the offensive end, again, you didn't get anything overly sexy in this matchup. The Mets, after being the hottest offense in all Major League Baseball that we saw in the month of June, have certainly cooled off quite a bit here as now that we have entered here the month of July. And as we entered the month of July, this is the kind of production that we have today. Francisco Lindor with the heroics, the Clutch Gene himself and Mr. Clutch Door, 3 for 4 that we saw there with the double and the 2 RBIs at 250 average and a 763 OPS on the season. Brandon Nimmo, 1 for 4 as well with a double and an RBI that we see there and a walk, including a pair of strikeouts for Nimmo, 249 average, 811 OPS this season. JD Martinez went 0 for again, down to 263 and 817 there on the clip. So those offensive numbers, they will definitely rise again soon, but JD Martinez is officially in a slump and has been for a couple games now throughout this road trip. Pete Alonso, same applies. Pete is back down below 800 OPS, not ideal. 243 average, 789 OPS, 1 for 4 on the day for Alonso. Alvarez, 1 for 3 with the double today. No one drove him in, however, and a walk, a 293 average, and 858 OPS for one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball. Ben Gamble with a run scored after pinch running for Alvarez later in said ball game. DJ Stewart 0 for 3 there, batting 6th, 172 average, 638 OPS. So my question to David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza is, what does DJ Stewart currently bring to this roster, which is warranted to him staying on said roster? I'm seeing very little reasons at the moment, truthfully. Harrison Bader, of course, 1 for 1 with the run scored that we saw there with a huge hit in the top of the ninth, 271 average, 722 OPS. Mark Vientos 1 for 4, 288 average, and an 892 OPS. Feels like the first time in forever Vientos' OPS is below 900. Jeff McNeil 0 for 3 today with a pair of strikeouts, not overly surprising, 214 average, 579 OPS. Luis Torrens 0 for 1, and in regards to McNeil, there's all the more reason to just, again, if you're going to play McNeil more in the outfield, all the more reason to consider a Luis Angel call-up should, again, you want to have him split time with a guy like Jose Iglesias there, or have him get more consistent reps and have Iglesias be a great mentor there off the bench and bring him in certain matchups when you deem his best. Want to know your thoughts on Luis Angel Acuna, everybody, in the comments down below, too. We will not be doing a prospect report today, however, because not all games, I believe, have included today on the prospect front, but don't worry, tomorrow I will have them all updated for you all. But actually, I'll double check real quick before we wrap up the show. Iglesias, of course, 1 for 3, 333 average, and 849 OPS on the season. Let me just double check to make sure that not all games were already played in the minor leagues. If they will, then I will gladly give you guys a quick prospect report. If not, I won't. And yep, I'm not going to do that because not all games have been played yet that we see there, and that's perfectly fine. And I don't even think all Mets minor league teams are playing today or tomorrow as well. I don't think they play on Mondays. I could be wrong in that, but I feel like that's the case. Let's see here. I miss Brooks Raley. You and I both, my friend. You and I both. Decent enough ERA, doesn't project well. Who are we talking about there, Zach? Let me know. You can always bring him up and let him get used to the majors and send him back down if you need to. Let's see. Dave says, hi, Wardy. Excellent game. Great win. Great game by Lindor. Glad Diaz was able to come back and hold on and get this important win. You and I both, my friend. Yep. Very happy to see Diaz have the outing that he did today. And to my concurrent roughly 1,400 live viewers, thank you all so much for being in here. Continue to smash a like and subscribe button for your boy. Greatly appreciate that as we're breaking down the latest of Mets land as they take down the Pittsburgh Pirates in Game 3 of a 4-game set by a final score that we see here of, yes, not 4-3, 3-2. And my personal biggest takeaways after a victory like this is it's nice to see, really, since Edwin Diaz returned to this bullpen being more effective. Are they still overtaxed and overworked? Yes. But that's why a guy like, again, Matt Gage is someone I don't foresee to stay out of the bullpen long. And I'm really looking forward to seeing when he gets the call, the type of production he may or may not have in said bullpen. That's going to be another key thing to keep an eye on for sure. Raley and Foley, we miss dearly. Unfortunately, Sean Reed Foley has been having a slow roll with his IL stint, so he will not return until post-All-Star break, which sucks. I've been loving Foley this season. I really have been. Raley, him probably never pitching a game for the Mets again, really stings for sure. Let's see here. Wardy, do you think any of the one-year contract guys will get extended, like Bader and or JD? No, I think there's a possibility of one of them, but I would be lying if I had confidence beyond one player. I think most of the expendable guys the Mets have right now will not be with the Mets next season. But at least one, I definitely could see a reunion being had depending on what they decide by the trade deadline and ultimately heading into the offseason. You want to see Eric Orsi tomorrow? Well, you're in luck, Rebecca. Eric Orsi might just have the prime time to make his Metropolitan bullpen debut tomorrow because Orsi is yet to, of course, be utilized in this Mets bullpen. The Mets just called him up a day or so ago after Adcock gave up a grand slam and gave up runs to everyone and their mother in that 14-2 game 1 loss in Pittsburgh. Eric Orsi, of course, a 2-time cancer survivor, a phenomenal story, a lively fastball too. Excited to see what he can do should he be given an opportunity as soon as tomorrow. Where did those OMG signs come from? They actually came from an awesome supporter here on the WardyNYM platform, and he was in attendance at PNC Park today that we saw. That's why the highlights that I have for you guys are showcasing himself, and I actually want to give you guys his name. That is J Mac Customs that you guys can check out there on Twitter. Here's my man J Mac. What a beauty J-Mac is. Let me some J-Mac Customs here. He has been the one doing all these awesome OMG signs. He even rocked some really, really cool dunks that we saw today, too, at the game, wearing LFGM dunks. Those are sick. Love that. But, yeah, no, he seemed like he had a great time at the game and also posted recently more OMG signs that he has been making for the Mets. You know, nice and perfectly, you know, glossy laminate and stuff, too. Really, really cool stuff. Shout out to my man Jay, great follower here on the channel, follower mine on Twitter. And yes, he is the creator of the OMG signs. Really, really cool guy. Priest on a plane has revealed himself. What happened? Vientos and Terens in the night, get the bat off your shoulders 100%. Yeah, those were bad at-bats. For sure. Again, Chapman might throw gas, but he's so vulnerable, it's not even funny. He's so vulnerable. Do I think Sproat is ready for a promotion? No. And the reason why I say no is because I don't think Brandon Sproat gains anything at the AAA level. I really don't. I think Brandon Sproat goes from AA to the bigs. I think that's a possibility. However, I don't know if it's a guarantee to happen this season. I understand the excitement as to why it could and should happen, understandably so, but it suggests that it will. Again, we're not quite there yet, but no less, awesome to see Brandon Sproat in the electrifying season he's been having there with the Rumble Ponies, and hopefully it continues. And when the time is time for him to be called up, we will be here excited and ready to see his long-awaited, highly anticipated Metropolitan debut. Carla, great member, says Alvy can only do so much with 3-2 counts all game. Plus, depends on the umpires for sure. And Alvarez does a great job overall. He really does. Again, great day for him behind the plate. And, of course, with his gap-to-gap ability, hitting the double that he did. Do I see anything to JDM that explains his struggles? No, nothing overly. Again, JDM is just a free swinger. And sometimes, in the case of JD, I think if anything, just poor pitch selection that we're noticing, you know, getting out in front a little bit as well. You know, just some things I've noticed a little bit with Martinez that normal guys go through in ruts, but nothing overly. Like, I don't think he needs to drastically change his mechanics. I think Martinez has just been getting unlucky. That's about it. And I know that JD Martinez will get out of his rut because he always swings himself out of said ruts 9 out of 10 times, right? So not overly concerned there. Looking forward to once JD is back to being the JD that has been rolling, that he was so greatly for a month plus, and he's had such a great impact on the Mets, both on the offensive ball when it comes to batting himself, and also on the coaching end, in which he has helped out big time, and bullpen with weighted metal bats, helping them with their hitting approach one by one, among other things. He is literally another hitting coach for the Mets here, which is so cool to say. But before we wrap up the live show, everybody, I definitely want to take a couple more minutes to answer whatever comments, questions you got for me. So by all means, ask and relay away. And again, thank you all so much for doing exactly that. Happy to have you all in here again as the Metsies go on to win this one by a final score of 3-2. Definitely an exciting victory for the Metsies. Not one that we thought was going to happen right from the jump, but it happened when it needed to happen. And I see we're almost at 150 likes, guys. If you guys could help us get it 200 to my roughly 400 concurrent live viewers on Twitter, pardon me, not on Twitter, on YouTube, that would mean a lot. And to my Twitter viewers, I know we got over 1,000 concurrent. Head over to YouTube if you haven't already. Hit that like and that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much again for that. Let's see. Marcus says, we need consistency in 6 innings every time out there for Manaea, and he needs to consistently get into a rhythm, so that is not painful to watch. Here's the thing. Manaea is not going to consistently give us 6 innings today. He is still through and through a 5-and-die pitcher more than likely, but Manaea with Francisco Alvarez paired again has been brilliant, and I hope that continues in the case of Sean's. Should he stay in the Mets organization, however long that might be, whether it's the whole season or whether it's, you know, of course, he's traded at the deadline. Either way, it's been great to see Sean Manaea kind of find his footing and be more than just, you know, a innings eater for the Mets, if you will. He's definitely had some productive outings, but to suggest that he will have consistent 6 strong innings every time out there, I don't foresee that as a guarantee, and that's why I'm not going to give it to you as such. Oh my God, Wardy, that Iglesias at-bat was amazing. Yes, it was, Emerson. Huge at-bat by Jose. And again, that's the kind of at-bat you're getting from Iglesias that you just simply aren't getting from a guy like McNeil all season long. And that sucks. It really does, but that's just been an unfortunate reality of things. Let's see here. How do you think Scott's going to fare tomorrow? Good question. I actually think, Rebecca, we're not doing Farm Report today just because there aren't all active games going on at the moment. They're not all finished. So no Farm Report today, but don't worry. We will have Farm Report to discuss tomorrow if there's anything that we found that was notable from today. So we will touch on anything that was notable today, tomorrow, because I'm pretty sure that there's no games in the minors on Monday. If I'm wrong, they'll let me know in the chat. I'm pretty sure that's the case, though. So we will reconvene tomorrow then on the prospect front. But what I did want to say here before I wrapped up the show was not only on this victory and how the Mets were able to get it the way that they did, but in regards to Carlos' question here, how do I think Scott's going to fare tomorrow? I actually think Christian Scott is going to fare quite well tomorrow. And the reason why is this is still a Pittsburgh Pirates lineup that is pretty depleted. One of the worst offenses in all of the National League here among teams in Major League Baseball too. And you're having Christian Scott, who pounds his zone, does not walk guys much. Yes, is susceptible to the lawn ball, so that's something he will be made wary of. And I wouldn't be shocked if he gives up a home run to O'Neal Cruz and or Brian Reynolds tomorrow. But if Christian Scott can give the Mets a solid 5.2 to 6 innings of 2 earned run ball, I think that's definitely within the cards of possibility. So for Scott, it's getting ahead of hitters early, working that rising fastball, that late rise to his ability there, touching that, topping out, 94, going 97 on the gun there. Christian Scott has been very effective. He just needs to get more bite on that sweeper as well. I've noticed Scott hasn't generated the swing and misses nearly as much as you'd hope for since his first couple starts that we saw in the Major League Baseball this season, going all the way back to his dominance against the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays were a high swinging team during that game too. So for Christian Scott, I want to see him get ahead of hitters there with the fastball. I want to see him hopefully get more swing and miss to those righty batters, especially with that sweeping slider. And the case of those lefty batters, that being an O'Neal Cruz, especially, you just got to be very wary on how you pitch to them, not haying stuff. And again, Christian Scott is going to pound the zone like a mofo tomorrow, and Mitch Keller is going to probably look masterful across at least 6 strong innings. So we need Scott to give the Mets brilliance. Hopefully he can provide that in length, but ultimately this is going to be a nice test for Christian Scott to help again lead the Mets to a series victory in a 4-game set, which would be a huge confidence boost for the young towering right-hander and for a Mets team looking to again get back above 500 as they currently sit 500 on the season. But good question, though. Really, really like that. Richard, thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind words there. Richard Summit says, Wardy, your analysis and game recap have been excellent, very professionally sounding. Congrats to you. I appreciate that, Richard, even though I'm definitely, I'd say, far from professional at times, where I definitely go all over the place when it comes to my initial reactions to news and stuff like that. I've been doing this every single day for a number of years now, and every single day, it's such a part of my routine that it's second nature. So I'm glad that seems to be turning out as well as it has been, from the feedback to the continued growth on the channel to this being the largest platform of the Mets among YouTubers. Again, very humbling to say the least. So thank you again for that, Richard. And everybody, thank you all so much for the questions. You guys really asked awesome ones. Do I think Sevy will continue to stay consistent throughout the season? I think Severino will continue to fluctuate up and down. All the more reason why I wouldn't be shocked if the Mets do decide to trade him by the deadline, even if they're still within 3 games of a playoff spot. But that is what I will leave you with, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Mets' latest postgame segment as he took down the Pirates here in 9th inning fashion by a final score of 3-2. I will see you all back tomorrow bright and early for early 12:35 p.m. Eastern game. So hopefully the Mets again aren't sluggish like they were for their 11 a.m. game on 4th of July. Get the bats swinging early and often against Mitch Keller. Make him pay for hurting Starling Marte and the Mets season towards the end of 2022. If you know, you know, baby. I was at a concert the day that happened and I was losing my shit because I knew once Marte was hurt on the hand that we had ourselves problems. Give Mitch Keller hell tomorrow and secure the series victory. Until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching, folks. And this is your boy Wardy